Hello everybody, Lorenzo here with a new series called KSP Engineering, and as the name suggests, we are going to focus on engineering launchers for the most part. Later we may move on to satellites, bases, landers, and maybe even planes, but today it's launchers. And the format of this show is going to be a little bit different from the previous ones. No big space program running careers, mishaps and challenges. No, just engineering. We don't care about the Kerbals, we're just focusing on making nice looking, well, maybe nice looking is not on the top of the list, but we're focusing on making functional, easy to pilot, sensible rockets. That means, if possible, we'll be using simple principles like 7-stage tiered asparagus onion style boosters will be low on the priority list, but something that's easy to comprehend, easy to pilot, and easy to use. And I will publish them on the forums and in the comments, so everyone is of course free and invited to use these designs and comment them and tell everyone, me and the world, how much better they can do, of course. So what we have today is the MicroLauncher, and it's not very micro, but the payload is micro. The stats here for the thing are the payload is 640 kilograms. It packs a combined delta V of 11.5 kilometers per second. That's the launcher, not the payload, obviously. In this game we're not counting the payload as something that can do anything, so we're just focusing on the launcher. The launch gross weight of the whole vehicle is 246.5 tons, so that's 246,565 kilograms, and the cost of the launcher, excluding the payload, is 120,000 credits. Well, you've been staring at this for a while, so I'll show you the ship in action. So, throttling up, SAS on, SAS on. Right, so that's the first problem. I have spent too much time yammering about the rocket and the electric charge has run out. Fortunately, we don't care about these things. We'll just revert to launch and fire it off for real. Obviously, if you are going to use this launcher in an actual launch of yours, you might want to make sure that the payload includes enough battery power for your needs. See, the sun is a little bit lower. We've rewound time by 8 minutes, and here we go. Nicely controlled ascent. This thing is not the most fuel efficient one. The payload fraction is only about 0.25%, but it is a very, very straightforward one. It's just simple serial staging. We have a big rocket here, a slightly smaller rocket on top of that, and an even smaller rocket on top of that, and the payload we've made even has an ion engine, so that has on its own the same amount of delta V as the whole launcher, but of course it will need solar power and plenty of time to use that. It is worth noting for previous viewers of the channel and my series that this one will be completely stock. I'll be using KSP Engineer Redux to help me design the things, but otherwise everything you see is stock, so you can just grab the file and use it in your own game if you so desire. With the stock game comes of course the stock aerodynamics model. That means that it's generally most efficient to start your launches going straight up to till around 10 to 15 kilometers and then initiate a pitch over maneuvers. The launches here have been the launchers here have been designed to take that into account, so you'll see quite often a relatively slow climb, as I also prefer using the least number of engines feasible. I could strap a lot of boosters here, but that would increase complexity and, well, reduce elegance and beautification of the ship. This MicroLauncher is just a kickoff. I'm planning to do the next episode for a 50-ton to low orbit launcher and then just progressively increase the weight challenge. So 50, 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600, 3200, basically keep going until my computer melts. But for now we have this very simple serial staged booster, the MicroLauncher, that will take a small payload pretty much anywhere in the Kerbal system. That's worth noting as well, the 11.5 km per second quoted delta V figure does suffice to send your 600 kilogram payload literally to every interesting destination in the system. So if you just need something to shoot a probe to a place where you haven't been before, you can use this. Just slap something small on top of it and it will get you there. No questions asked and no troubles given. See, we go moving on to the second stage, which has a mainsail for comfort. And of course we don't want any fuss whilst flying this thing. Pitching over now, we have plenty of thrust to weight and plenty of delta V, so no need to fuss about a particular trajectory. We're about in space as well, so we can start to extend our solar panels, which we sort of need to not run out of power in case we ever want to do something with this satellite. Now of course we're not going to focus on the payload too much. It's just an example satellite with some ion thrusters, just one ion thruster actually, some solar panels, some xenon canisters, and choice of scientific equipment. But as I said, the focus here is very much on the launcher. So we're attaining orbital velocity now at 87 kilometers of altitude. And as you can see, our second stage is still more than half full of fuel, and then we have a third stage on top of that even, and that's even before we start firing up the ion engine. So I'll give you a small demonstration of what 11 kilometers per second of delta V looks like in the stock game. Incidentally, it's almost exactly the right amount of delta V to get you into Earth orbit in the real solar system mod. So this whole rocket would serve to just sort of get you into orbit, barely. So I'll skip ahead until this stage burns out. And when that's happened, now we're already going at 4.2 kilometers per second, which means we can light off the third stage. If you know where you're going, you can of course, it's better to do your burns close to the planet for a maximized O-berth effect. If you don't know what that means, either Google it or ask me and I'll make a video explaining it, if I can. It's because it's a really weird effect that defies explanation sometimes. And I had intended to visit the sun, but I've already made the trajectory too weird for that. Maybe we'll be able to at least get close. Yeah, we'll probably be able to get close. We're already slated to exit the Kerbal system in just under 5 hours, the time that's usually allotted for a lunar transfer. So you can see what speed does here. And this is, remind you, a very, very simple launcher. Just 3 stacks of progressively larger rockets. You can make this yourself or copy the craft file from the description of the video. And it's nice to make a small probe to just send anywhere. If there's one of these planets that you haven't visited or you want to check out, a rocket like this will help you get there with a minimum amount of fuss. Now of course you can't really do much with this. You can scan, you can deploy the antennae and putter about with your ion engine, but there's no Kerbals to hop about. There's no lander modules. There's really not much of anything, but it will serve to go take a look. So if you've been struggling to get off the planet, consider using a ship like this to, well, just start exploring the cosmos. So look at that, we are in fact getting pretty close to the sun here, which is always a nice destination after the moon, I think. Just go and visit that sun and see how it looks up close. See how that guy's doing. Basically we want to go more in this way, so that we may actually get really close to the sun and give that ion engine a go. Because you might recognize that these panels are not quite large enough to run an ion drive off, but they will suffice once we get close to the sun. And these kinds of ridiculous trajectories are all made possible by the wonderful people of the MicroLauncher. See, this is the trajectory here with a completely inefficient trajectory just going there. Let's accelerate time and see how fast we get in the regions of solar space. I reckon that ought to be pretty rapid. I don't know what I'm saying, but here we go, approaching the sun. Not getting as close as I initially intended. I wanted to skim its surface, but well, that proved impossible because I did the trajectory wrong. So even with the patented MicroLauncher system, you still need to somewhat pay attention to your trajectory. Still, we're close enough that these puny panels can fire the ion thruster for sustained bursts, and that probably means that we will in fact be able to escape the Kerbal Solar System, because this thing by itself has 10 kilometers per second of delta V from just these small xenon canisters. Now if you fly this thing, this specific satellite, you will find that if you try to do this in Kerbin orbit, it doesn't really work. It starts flickering and it doesn't get enough power, but this close to the sun, these panels provide sufficient power here. 16 energy flows. I don't know what units these are, but you don't see numbers that high around Kerbin, that's what I'm trying to say. So this is basically just playing around. I will show it for proof how you will in fact be able to visit the sun up close and then leave the system altogether with the MicroLauncher. But I think you got the point. It's if you just want to go have a look at any destination you want, slap together a quick rocket, no unnecessary complications, complexity, that's the word I'm looking for, none of that is needed. You just stack rockets and go, or you grab the MicroLauncher. And here we go, expanding the trajectory, there we go, ions are blasting. How far are we gonna go? Infinitely far. So there we have it. Just using about a quarter of its xenon fuel, this probe, on top of the MicroLauncher, I've said it lots of times already, has visited the sun up close and is now on its way to infinity and beyond. Well, quite spiffy for just over $120,000. Credits, Kerbalits, whatever you want to call it. So, that's my sales pitch. I'm Lorenzo. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and stay tuned to KSP Engineering for more larger, interesting, and handy rocket ships. Goodbye.